All right. I want to welcome Townsend Wardlaw to the Coach's Chronicle. Townsend's really excited to have you here today. And I've got a series of questions for you that our audience and subscribers want to know more about you. So I'm looking forward to diving in with you.
Right on, let's do it.
Okay, so we'll get to the coaching piece in a little bit, but first, I want to dive into some of your past. You've had a fascinating rise from rolling burritos to becoming a
Yeah.
Fortune 500 VP in under 6 years. What inner shifts or decisions do you believe most accelerated that journey?
I would say an unreasonable confidence in myself and that had positive sides and negative sides. I entered the workforce kind of late. I went to college. After college, I had no desire to go work for an investment banking firm, an insurance firm, or someplace in Boston or New York. And I headed out to California and worked in the bike industry and pursued my dream of being a professional bike racer. I wasn't all that good, it turns out, and traveled around the world and had a blast. At the age of around 27, I remember waking up in Colorado is where I was living. And literally one day to the next, I had the idea I should probably get like a real job or something if I want to find a suitable mate, procreate. Literally up to that point, there'd been no thought of I'm just going to live my life and it'll go the way it goes. And being thus unqualified for anything else, I went into sales. I'd been doing sales on some level in the bike industry and in bike shops. And back in the day, the way you got into sales, professional business to business sales, was you took a crappy sales job. And the choices were you could go sell copiers, pagers, literally pagers, right? That was they
Wow.
had salespeople for that, or long distance. We used to pay to make phone calls, believe it or not. Businesses used to pay. So my first job was driving from Boulder down to the tech center, which at the time was about a half an hour commute each way. Now it's an hour and a half. Get on the phone, dialing off of index cards, basically making 120 plus phone calls a day, getting told to go pound sand. Most of those calls. I was able to set a couple meetings a day. I'd do some presentations about the long distance service we had. I'd go home and cry myself to sleep at night after being, told to go to hell so many times, and then wake up and do it again. And I never had the idea, or I guess I should say, I was never programmed with, well, this is what you're supposed to do or how you have to do it in the professional world. I just sort of woke up and said, well, seems like this is something that would be cool, and I would do it. And one of the things that I did was change jobs when a better one came along. Now, back, we're talking, this is a while back, 1998, 97. It was, dogma that you had to stay in a job for 3 to 5 years and there was this path to move up. I literally would get confused at why the management was so terrible or people weren't appreciating the money I was making them. And I would quit and get a better job. And every time I did that, I doubled my salary. Found myself working for Lucent, which is a Fortune 500 company, was at the time. We spun off to Avaya. Even at that company, I probably had 3 or 4 roles because every 4 or 5 months I was aghast at the insanity of this corporate stuff. So I would quit. And they'd come chase me down and offer me more money and have me come back and give me a promotion. I'm like, this is crazy. What's wrong with these people? But it was a wild ride. So just this idea that I'll figure this out. There's not a right way to do things was one of the things that allowed me to really go up the food chain rather quickly.
Wow. Amazing. And then,
Yeah.
as I understand, you started your own business, so then lost
Yes.
that. So losing your first company, going through personal bankruptcy
Yep.
and divorce was, I'm sure
Yeah.
that was a defining chapter for you. What did
To
that
say the least.
experience teach you about resilience and rebuilding?
Well, I think in hindsight, I could tell you a lot about resilience and rebuilding. What it taught me was that how I had created my life up to that point was not sustainable, was not going to work, right? You sort of think about the kind of uh, mindset that says, I'm just going to take a new job whenever I want. I'm going to leave a $250,000 a year VP level position with a mortgage and leased cars and a wife and 2 little kids and do my own thing. Like it's this unreasonable confidence, which got me into my own company and allowed me to grow it to a certain point. But it ultimately is what capped the growth and began to just, for lack of a better term, wear away at my soul. So it really was much more of the, I think, universe sending me a very strong and severe message that, hey, bud, how you're creating life, that only works to a certain point, right? That's not going to work. This very egoic, this very, it's up to me, this very superior based, I can make this happen, right? Well, that works up to a point, right up until everything comes crashing down because the entire world has been built. The whole company, I had 80 people working for me. I had an executive team, but I came in every day thinking I'm the only one that knows anything, right? This up to me that got me there. At some point, you got 80 people on your back and a 2 million, $2.5 million payroll, and you're like, I can't sustain it. So it broke me, right? Literally broke me, cracked me open. And on the other side of that, the universe was very kind and put in my path a number of incredible teachers and coaches and guides and experiences and kind of help me see what what life might look like if I were to show up differently.
Yeah, blessings. At
Yeah.
what point did you realize that traditional sales consulting wasn't enough and you needed to pivot into coaching?
Great question. So I shut down the company, needed to make money, so I went into consulting. Right, I had a good track record and I had a good network, so I was out doing these large scale transformations. Hated that. A lot of travel, very intense, a lot of money, but just soul sucking. Um, I recast my consulting world really into what would be a career that would work for me. And for 10 years, I was a consultant. I was a solo consultant serving founders and people that were growing companies and helping them rebuild their sales organizations or grow marketing and their operations and basically grow and exit. Very profitable work, very engaging work, but also very boring work. And over the course of a decade, I worked with 250, I can't remember, different founders. 3 dozen of them I took all the way through the growth and through the exit, right? Where on the other side of the rainbow, they had, 10, 20, 50, $80 million in their bank from the sale of their company. And I noticed a pattern, and that is they were all just as miserable and unhappy and unfulfilled and hollowed out on the other side with the pile of money. So I'm kind of looking at this going, really? I'm going to spend the rest of my life making a bunch of people a bunch of money that doesn't change anything because, they get 50 million in the bank, then they're divorced and I got to split it and their kids don't talk to them. Like, this is nuts. And I kind of saw, well, that's where I was heading when I was growing my company. So even when it works, it doesn't work. And at the same time, I had been working a couple different coaches. I through a series of fun coincidences was on the phone with Rich Litvin and hired him as my coach. He was my first what I call big boy coach. 120 grand. We ended up working together for about 18 months. I love telling the story how in my first conversation with Rich, our first session, he asked me a question, and I credit that question in that session with being worth the entire investment. If he had fired me after that, it would have been worth 120 grand. And the question was, which of your clients inspire you? And really rather arrogantly, my response was, none of them. I inspire them. Like I thought that was awesome. And in his beautiful, lovely, cheeky British accent, he said something like, well, isn't that a shame? And that hit me like just a punch in the face. I'm like, holy crap, this guy's right. This is bullshit. Really, a life where I inspire people for the like, yeah, that's one way to do it. But what if my clients inspired me? And what I saw was, no, I'm done with this. I'm the expert. I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm going to make your. I like this coaching thing. And I didn't even know what it meant, but literally, I went to my calendar and I'd had all these consulting spots, and here's when I would put my clients. I started deleting them 3 months out and started creating coaching slots. I didn't have clients. I didn't have a plan. I certainly didn't have a certification. I said, I'm going to coach. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to create space to coach people. I'm like, this is what I want to be doing. I want to be working on the inner game. I want to be showing up where the person across from me is the expert, and it's my job to help them, tap into greater potentials, see themselves and their world differently, not train another sales team on cold calling or another founder on how to manage. Like enough already. Let's play a game that's worth playing.
Mhm. Okay, it dovetails nicely. I know your core philosophy is being over doing. So how, and we come from a world where that's explored quite deeply.
Yeah.
How do you explain this distinction to someone hearing it for the first time?
Well, a couple different ways. And to be very clear, I never articulated that way, this being before doing. And I wouldn't know what I know about this if I hadn't spent 2.5 years working with Steve Hardison, who's incredible. But what I like to say is everybody wakes up every day and goes out into the world and they see the world through their eyes. And no two people see the same version of the world. You and I can be in the same movie theater watching the exact same movie. We're literally not watching the same movie, and the same is true for life. We play for results, right? We want outcomes. We take actions to achieve those outcomes, and all of our actions come from our thinking. But no two humans have the same thinking about everything. One of the analogies I love to share is you get five eyewitnesses to a crime or something happened. The police, each one gives a different account of what happened. Like literally, our thinking about the world produces the world, and no two humans have the same thinking. Well, what creates that? And for me, the simplest way to talk about it is what I call our being, our way of being, is what literally produces our thinking about the world. And then our thinking about the world produces the actions, the action produces the results. So being to me is somewhere above our thinking. I don't know where exactly it lives. Somewhere between me and consciousness, right? It's kind of the layer between. Another way I like to talk about being is we think about the devices that we carry around and we use, and we interact with the devices through the user interface and through the applications. I got my banking application, I have my fitness application, I have my calendar application. That application sits on this lovely piece of hardware, the iPhone, I don't know, 14 or 15, whatever it is. Once in a while, I trade up my iPhone and then I add new apps and change new apps. What people forget is that between the applications and the hardware, there's this thing called the operating system. And nothing in the phone occurs without the permission of and without following the rules of the operating system. When you get an update for OS 16.2. Whatever it is, it changes everything on the phone and it manages the most basic functions. So you take this analogy to humans. I've got all sorts of applications. I go for a hike and I'm an exercise app. I have my how am I as a husband application. I have my how am I as a father, as a business person. There's always things that I do. Well, all those apps are running on the piece of hardware that I got about 56 years ago, and hopefully it will last a little longer. But somewhere along the way, there was installed this layer I call the human operating system, aka our being, that is in charge of everything else. Why is it that two people can pick up a book called How to Lose Weight, How to Get Rich, How to Be a Great Father, and some will take that book and do things with it, some won't? Well, what if there's something running underneath that determines if you can even utilize that information, if you can apply it, if you'll even see where in the world, oh, I could use this. So that's kind of the simple, short way I think about what people call our being.
Yeah, it's such a phenomenal analogy. Thank you. Um, can you share an example where a client's transformation at the level of being created unexpected downstream results, or as you say, their human operating system created unexpected downstream results?
Well, unexpected good or unexpected bad?
Either, I suppose. I mean, we're probably
Yeah,
really familiar with the
yeah,
unexpected bad, but when we're
yeah,
upgrading, we're looking for the
yeah.
unexpected good.
Well, let me give you an example. So who I serve in my professional life are founders, right? Builders, people that like creating companies, people like me, people that aren't satisfied and not okay with, I'll just go to a job and get my money and go home and enjoy my life. Well, what goes on in the background? What kind of operating system must exist to even entertain that thought, right? For somebody to go out and leave, and I'll just use myself as an example, the security of a very high paying corporate job and venture out on their own, there has to be something at the level of operating system that says, I can do that. I can make that happen. It's up to me, right? This self-reliance. Well, that it's up to me will see, oh, there's a business opportunity. It's up to me can can take advantage of that, can do something with that. I have that as a possibility. I'll be okay. And as It's Up to Me goes out and starts a company, builds the company, grows the company, gets some success, well, that reinforces not just what I do, but who I am at the level of my operating system. Who I am is I can make it happen. It's up to me. I know how to work hard, right? Whatever sort of the code is, it reinforces itself. Well, there comes a time when that code starts to have, we'll call it diminishing returns or downside effects, right? And again, I'll use me as an example. It's up to me. Nobody's coming has been a theme in my life, not just something I do out in the world, but a way the world occurs for me. It allowed me to start a company. It allowed me to go out and travel and not get a job after college and say, "Oh, I'll figure it out at some point." It allowed me to enter the corporate world with a lot of, bravado and fearlessness. It allowed me to walk away from a lot of money. It allowed me to start a company. It allowed me to go and get clients. Well, it also was the thing that created separation and alienation and distance from my leadership team. It's up to me doesn't trust people. It's up to me thinks everybody else is going to do it wrong and has to, right? So it becomes a dependence. Oh, by the way, there was this wonderful woman that I married and had two kids with who got to be married to It's Up to Me. So every problem was, okay, I'll take care of it. And I'll take that responsibility on. And while I'm doing that, I'll build some resentment because, you're not there for me. And eventually, I've got enough evidence that It's Up to Me doesn't need this, and I'll divorce that. I'll find something better at things. So you can see where the operating system that creates our life, the being that creates our life, can do so powerfully. But if it's not an option, right, then it becomes a real drag on the overall system. It starts to degrade the quality of life. The founders that I work with, the people that I serve, typically have operating systems, have ways of being that sound something like, it's up to me. I need to work hard to get what I want. Nobody's coming. That's going to be hard, and I do hard things. I need to prove myself, right? All sorts of things that were put in there at a very young age, programmed in, that allow them to create powerfully, but then start to carry a real burden. I'll give you an incredible example. I have the privilege of coaching incredibly, extraordinarily successful humans, people that earn more than a year, earn more in a month than most humans will earn in their entire lives. And people look at them and think they are successful. Right? I want that. Well, what I know from talking to them is when I ask them, do you feel successful with 100 million, half a billion, $1 billion in net worth? You know what they say? They say, I don't. Because for them, at the level of their operating system, they're not successful. I'm not a success is the fuel that goes in the car that powers the journey. Now, again, that fuel works really well. The problem is it never pays off. And if you don't know that that's the fuel creating your life, well, you don't know how to change the fuel or stop using that fuel and change it into something else. The amount of founders that use the operating system, use their way of being to create powerfully, get everything that they want, and then don't feel any more satisfied, don't feel any more fulfilled, don't feel any more connected, is absolutely astounding, right? So I'll pause there, but that's a
Yeah,
little
no,
color commentary on that.
I'm going to ask you to go a little bit deeper then, so we can unpause. So what is it? What does the practice of actually upgrading the human operating system look like in practice?
Well, I think there's lots of ways to do it. As with almost anything, it all begins with awareness, right? If what I believe, if what I am convinced of is the thoughts I have about the world are objectively true, are inherently true about the world, well, that's like going into a movie theater, sitting down and believing that what you see on the screen is real. It's not. If I think what's on the screen of the movie theater is real, well, if I want to do something about my experience of the movie, I interact with the screen. I yell at it, I scream at it, I laugh at it, I throw shit at it, whatever. Of course, nothing that I do to the screen is going to change what's showing up on the screen. So if I believe that my thoughts about the world are how the world is, and anybody that doesn't see it that way is wrong or bad or stupid. Well, I spend my life interacting with, working with what's out there, never realizing that the source is actually in here. So, in the theater analogy, what I need to become aware to is what I see on the screen is not actually something real there. It's coming from the booth. Now, I don't know what's in the booth. I can't get in the booth, right? But I see the window there. But there are the particles of light. And the way I think about this from an analogy standpoint is the degree to which I can see the world, and rather than buy into, well, that's the world, I got to deal with it as it is, start asking the question, what thoughts about the world, like the particles of light, are producing that? What thoughts do I have about the world, about people, about situations, etc.? And if that's the thought I have, what must be going on in that booth to produce that thought? Right? In any situation, I'm going to have a thought about it. Right? I walk into a room and I have thoughts instantly. I go, oh, that person's stupid or lazy or great or kind or good, whatever. Well, what I believe is those are the only thoughts I could be having. Not true. Those thoughts are a function of my being. So if I can slow things down and pop out of the illusion that what I see out there is objectively true, then I'll ask the question, well, what are my thoughts here? And my thoughts can always lead me, the awareness to the thoughts can lead me to what way of being might be producing those thoughts. Now, here's where it gets interesting to me. There's nothing wrong about any way of being. If I walk into a room and I see something going on, I think, wow, those people are doing that wrong. Like, I could do that better. Well, is that objectively true? No, but it's true from where I'm looking. So I have an opinion about them. Usually it shows up as judgment, blame, something like that. If I slow down the thoughts, I go, well, I could do it better. Okay, what way of being would produce that thought? Well, there's a way of being that I could call superior, right? If I am programmed as an I am superior, right? Well, I'm going to naturally project that onto every screen in the world. Now, there's nothing wrong with a way of being called I am superior and the thoughts it produced, as long as I'm aware to that's the being that's producing the thoughts. If I don't know that there's a projector, I think, well, the movie's like this, there's nothing I can do about it. Now, I am superior, or let's use it's up to me, is an absolutely great, powerful tool to start a business. So I would want to use that way of being there. As I grow and build the business, it's up to me has less utility. So I would want to be aware where my what I call default way of being or legacy way of being is trying to produce thoughts and my actions without me getting to weigh in on it. So again, there's nothing wrong with any particular way of being. All ways of being create. The question is, am I choosing a way of being that's producing my thinking and then my actions, or is it just running because it's always run and done whatever it wanted and I'm just kind of following along? So slowing that down, awareness to what I see out there is not objectively true. It's a projection of my thinking. My thinking, if I look at it, will give me clues to the way of being producing the thinking. And then I could ask in that moment, is superior how I want to be? Right? When I'm about to make a big bet or a presentation or, tell a client I can help them, superior is pretty useful. It's not a great thing to be creating dinner with my wife. So the simple idea that we have the power to see the way of being that's producing our thinking and consciously choose, I'm not going to be that in this moment, I'm going to be something else. That's incredibly powerful. And that transforms what we see in the world and then what we do with it. And then ultimately our experience and our results.
In your experience of helping businesses generate more than 1.5 billion in revenue, and now aiding coaches in building their businesses, what consistent blind spots do you see leaders or coaches face while growing their businesses?
Well, that's a great question. I used to think about them as blind spots. And the reality is we all have blind spots. And a blind spot can be something we don't see, or it can simply be the logical opposite of how the world occurs for us. And I'll give you a very simple example. A powerful way of seeing the world that keeps us safe, that produces results, is something's wrong. Something's wrong here. Something's out of place. Something's not right. Something's broken. All right. Somebody who sees the world, whose being creates something's wrong here, will find a lot of mistakes. Will find problems. They'll solve them. They'll get rewarded. They'll get paid. They'll get relationship. That will be reinforced. The problem is that's not objectively true. That's just one way of looking at it. So I got a call the other day from a longtime friend, and he was sharing about a job search that he's on, and a very frustrating for him experience of a protracted interview process. Is a very high level executive position. He's the perfect candidate for the job. I mean, all along the process, oh, you're great. We love you. You're going to be perfect. They made him a verbal offer, and then literally crickets, like complete ghosting from 5 people. So he's frustrated. And he called me up. He wanted to tell me the story and what have you. And as he's speaking about what's going on, I'm listening to his story, but what I'm seeing is the way of being that's creating it all, called "this wasn't supposed to happen." Something went wrong, right? And he wanted me to help him see what went wrong. Where did he go wrong? Where did they go wrong? What went wrong? I let him talk. He probably spent 25 minutes telling me the story. And at the end, he said, well, what can you tell me? I said, well, rather than tell you something, let me ask you a question. I want you to hear that I understand that from where you're looking, this is a disaster. This is like, how could this have happened? This is like something really bad happened. This is like broken. We got to figure it out. Not because it's true and not for like to challenge you, but just kind of as a game. I want you to consider the possibility that what you don't know is this is the best thing that ever happened. Now, I can't tell you why, and maybe there is no why. We'll know when we know, but let's just pretend that something's wrong is a place we're looking at it from. It's just over here. And from this is wrong, you see everything you see. It's not the wrong thing to see. It's perfect from here. Over here, there's another place to look, right? It's the north side of the canyon, the south side of the Grand Canyon. Over on this side is, holy shit, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Now, if you were looking from here, just let's pretend, what might you see? And it was a little, grindy to start. You say, well, no, it is. Let's just pretend like it's 10 years from now, and what you know is it was the best thing. Well, I guess the company went out of business. I guess the people, were indicted for. It's like he started coming up with all these reasons why it was. I said, cool. Now, I'm not here to convince you that that's true, right? I'm simply saying that from where you're looking, you got all these possibilities. Where you are blind to is the other story. And in my experience, if I can see a situation from all angles, well, I always know what to do. I always figure my way through it. When I'm stuck on one side, I'm dealing with something, and I don't have all the information. So when I think of blind spots, it's not like one thing or somebody has a blind spot. Whatever you're looking at the world from, wherever you're looking at the world from, well, you're blind to what's on the other side. And you're looking from that perspective because it's worked, it's served you, it works. And sometimes it bites you in the butt, and sometimes it makes you miserable and frustrated. So, as an exercise, any human can take a look at, get clear on, how am I occurring? How is the world occurring to me? And a simple one is, people call me all the time and they go, I have a problem. Well, maybe, but a problem is something you just created with your word, and you declared, I'm going to stand here and look at this as a problem. And then you're going to tell me all the things what make it a problem. All I got to do is say, well, what's the likely thing that they're not doing that would be the other set of possibilities? Well, that this was a gift. This was something the universe said, hey, here you go. We're going to take care of you. If they can look from that other side, they'll see what they're supposed to see, and now they'll have a full range of possibilities, and they'll do the best thing we always do.
Magic. Yeah, I love that. Um, a huge portion of a coach growing their business or any entrepreneur growing their business is likely going to be some portion of it's going to be enrolling or selling. How do you
Yes.
coach leaders or coaches to move from fear-driven selling to selling from authenticity?
Yeah. Well, there's two things. I want to be clear. There's fear-driven selling, like I'm trying to create fear so people will buy.
Hmm.
I just think that's absurd. When it comes to putting yourself out there as a coach, that is an incredibly rich tapestry or screen for what I call fear to project onto. Fundamentally, I'm selling me. And one of the most fundamental challenges we have as a human is the idea that we are worthy of serving another, right? So, one of the first things that I share with folks is the idea that someday you will reach a place where you can sit across from another human, talk about coaching, and you will have no fear is an absurd idea. So, one of the first things I want people to understand is that there is no part of this coaching game where you wake up one day and don't have thoughts of insecurity, doubt, inadequacy. I don't know if I have what it takes. And I share this with people and they're always somebody, really, you, Townsend? I'm like, yeah. Now, if I'm coaching somebody who's, a 30 or $100,000 a year coach, that doesn't, bring up any fear for me because I've done that a lot. But the nature of our human experiences, we always want to go out and do something more interesting. We're always expanding. So the people I'm sitting across from have a lot more zeros in their balance sheet, in their net worth. And there's a level of insecurity. Like, who am I to be served? The people that I get to serve, what they're up to, how much money they have, what they're creating in the world. I question, do I even have a right to approach them? And I work through that. And to me, that has become the sign that I'm in the right conversation. So that's the first part. The first thing is dispelling this idea that you're ever going to earn your way out of some sort of fear or insecurity in your ability to serve people. You won't, because once you're secure in serving one level of person, you'll say, well, I want to serve these people. That's how it works. So number one, you won't earn out of it. Number two, for me, coaching is very different from consulting. Consulting was the part of the world where I was the expert. I had the system, I had the process, I had the tools, I had the framework. You're going to do what I tell you to do, and that will produce the results you want. So it's all about responsibility. It's on me. I need to know what I'm doing. I need to be the expert. Well, that sets up, a very clear set of places where I've got business coaching this person. I have no business coaching this other person. Well, for me, coaching has nothing to do with that, right? And for me, coaching is not, I'm the expert. I have the process. I have the system. I'm a mirror. At my very best, I can sit across from somebody and I'm there to help them see themselves in their world from different angles. Some of my favorite conversations with clients, we've spent an hour or 2 hours or whatever together, and we've talked through something. I don't understand the business they're in. I don't know the terms they're using. I don't understand the ins and outs of even what they're dealing with. And they'll, at some point in the conversation, oh, I see it and I have an insight. It's something incredible. I'm like, wonderful. I don't know what I did. In fact, what I would say is I didn't do anything. So one of the things I believe that can really assist coaches in serving powerfully and quieting, at least to the extent possible, this little fear monster that we have, is getting really comfortable with the idea that ultimately we are not responsible for the client's experience. One of the things I ask coaches all the time is, what level of responsibility do you take for the client getting what they want, the outcome? Not what's your level of commitment, but what's your level of responsibility? Like, how much of that is up to you? And it's surprising because many coaches will say, oh, it's 50 or 8, like 80% is up to me. My answer is zero. Like, as crazy as that sounds, I take zero responsibility for their experience of coaching and certainly 0% for the results that they produce or don't produce. What I do is trust that they're going to get what they are supposed to get from this. I'm going to do my best job to show up as for lack of a better term, an agent of the universe of consciousness and allow to flow through me whatever's supposed to flow through me that will serve them. And sometimes there's immediate validation that they've been served. But I've also got experience of people walking away from a conversation and thinking, man, that guy's an idiot. He doesn't know how to coach. He ripped me off. And what I knew was, well, they got what they were supposed to get. We just haven't seen all the the news footage yet. And once in a while, I got a call in a year or 5 years saying, man, I need to let you know that was the most powerful conversation I had in my life. I was like, yeah, I remember I blew it. Yeah, well, no, you didn't.
Do you think there's coaches that believe or take too much responsibility in their role as the coach?
Yeah, I think that's probably the single greatest challenge in the coaching industry is the idea that the coach is responsible, is the idea that, if I only had more tools or more, like, I got to do something here, right? I think it inhibits the profession of coaching. And what I'll tell you is, I don't mean this with any unkindness. There's a lot of people who call themselves coaches. I don't think they're coaches. They're consultants, right? You got a system, you got a process, you have the 7 steps, you have the framework. That's wonderful. That has a place. That's not coaching. That's not coaching to me. Coaching is the person across from me has all the answers. Everything they need is inside of them. Werner Erhard had a fun expression. He would say, if somebody showed up with the right listening, right? Listening is what they're creating in the experience. Somebody shows up with the right listening, the right awareness, and the level of responsibility for I'm going to create. I could read them from the phone book, Werner said, and they would have an insight. And I've experienced this myself, right? When magic occurs, it's because something over on the other side of the screen or the table was alchemized. And yes, I was there, and yes, I had some part in it. I might know what I did, I might not know what I did. And I don't know that it matters. I think it was Michael Neal who shares the example of the lamppost theory. He said if people went outside and spoke to a lamppost for 30 minutes, just a light on the side of the road, just talk to it, that would be valuable. Like, they would get something out of that. And last time I checked, we're at least a level up from a lamppost.
Absolutely. You've said before that fear, uncertainty, and discomfort can be indicators of what we need to step towards. How can
Mhm.
people reframe those feelings so they become allies rather than obstacles?
Well, I think the short answer is, as with anything new, you have to learn to trust it, right? What we're taught, our mothers, our fathers, our teachers, our preachers, is fear means run away, means back off. Discomfort means, go the other direction for the most part, right? And sometimes we're taught this in some areas, but not others. But it's not crazy to interpret fear and stress as signs to protect ourselves, right? Several thousand or tens of thousands of years of evolution makes that a good idea. But we're not being chased by tigers or saber-toothed tigers or woolly, whatever. We're not going out to scrounge our food. The world is different. We're not constantly under threat. So part of what we have to do is reprogram our relationship to fear and learn to trust fear as much as we do to move away as to maybe move forward. Now, it's not something you do all at once. You don't go, oh, well, I think I'm going to go jump off a tall building. That's a great idea. Well, that might be a little too much. But what if instead of instinctively, and reflexively backing off whenever something is scary, you go, okay, let me see if I can step in a little bit. Um, I remember Rich Litvin shared this idea. He says, you think about skiing, and skiing is this this board thingy, this stick thingy that's literally sliding across. Like it's not in a track, right? It's moving. And in skiing, you can be on the flat part of the ski where you're moving really fast. You can also be on the edge. Now, the thing with the edge is too much edge and you lose power, not enough edge and you slide. Well, the whole thing in skiing is to learn to work your edge. You learn to feel the degree to which an edge gives you control and keeps the momentum going versus, oh, I'm turning, but I'm losing all my power and I'm all over the place. So it's something you got to learn over time. But you have to be willing to step in and play with it and say, okay, well, fear is not something I just have to run away with. Let me learn to use it. It's what I like to say, it's just another gauge or dial on the dashboard, right? And it's not like when that one goes, well, stop the car. No, it's a gauge. It's like your tachometer. There's a good place to be. It gets yellow, it gets red. Well, when you learn to really understand that, it improves your ability to optimize the performance of the car. And the same is true for our fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, what daily practices help you personally stay
Hmm.
grounded in being rather than slipping
Yeah,
back into doing?
yeah. Well, um, everything starts with, for me, the physical, sleep, exercise, putting good stuff in my body, right? They're just so essential. On top of that, I have a very simple, but also I would say very powerful practice of self-creation. Every day when I wake up, at some point, very, very nearly the first thing, I will create myself. What I do is I speak myself into existence. I speak my being. I've looked at, the past 40 something years of my life and the being that got me here and used that to create a new version, right? It's no different than if I woke up tomorrow and decided instead of Townsend, I want my name to be Roger. I would need to say, okay, remember, you're Roger, right? I've had a lifetime of being a Townsend. I need to recreate that. So, whereas for many years, I am superior as a legacy way of being that created a lot of my life. One of the things I create is no one is worthy of my judgment and everyone is deserving of my love. I speak that. I think it. And I have a whole self creation, a document, some people will call it, that I'll speak. On the other side of that, I'm very clear about what I call the games that I'm playing, right? I am, here's all the ways I want to be. Now, what does this persona, this being I've created, want to create in the world? What am I committed to? Well, I am committed first and foremost to I'm enough, right? One of the things I remind myself is I am enough, I've done enough because so much of my legacy way of being has created from I need to do more. So that's first, right? How do I want to be in the world? I am loving kindness. I'm committed to loving kindness. Every human that I meet, I'm committed to loving and being kind to them. And that's the game that I play. That's the game that the character plays. And then I've got some around business and things that I'm doing, like the games I'm playing in the world. So that's kind of getting the day started. And then throughout the day, it's simply a game of noticing my thinking, right? And when I say noticing my thinking, I kind of back into my thinking from my experience. If I'm having an experience of life that is pleasant, enjoyable, joyful, peaceful, well, what I know is I'm creating life from my conscious, created way of being and my commitments. And then I walk along and I see someone and I go, well, what a jerk. Like, well, that's probably not conscious created Townsend. That's probably something else. So I can work with that thought, that physical experience, right? If I'm stressed, if I'm worried, if I'm anxious, there's something going on up here that's being produced from a legacy way of being that has used that kind of thinking to create change. If I wake up and I'm or in the middle of the day I go, man, I hope I don't run out of money. Well, what I know is that's not a thought from conscious created Townsend. That's some legacy way of being that was always creating, we can't run out of money, so it would make more money. Well, I'm going to look at that thought. I'm going to see the legacy way of being that created it, and in a very nice, kind way, invite it to shut the hell up and remind it that that's not how we're going to create life. We're going to create life as abundant. We're going to create life as there's more than enough. We're going to create life as everything works out exactly the way it's supposed to. So
Mhm.
that really is a continuous practice. And all I need to do is monitor my thinking or my behavior or my emotions, right? If I'm short with my beautiful, incredible, powerful wife, Luisa Milano, what I know is, yeah, that's not who I want to be. Now, if I just let that go and move on to the next, well, I'm in my view allowing legacy being to kind of think that we're going to let that happen, and I don't. I clean that up inside, and then I clean it up outside. So it's always a practice of seeing where am I not thinking and acting in accordance with my intentional, conscious, created way of being. First, cleaning it up here. What do I need to do to shift that back and remind myself who I intend to be? And then how can I clean it up? Is there somebody I can apologize to or make it up to? So I'm always looking for that, and it keeps things pretty simple.
Amazing. Want to dive into some of the work that you're doing nowadays. We talked a lot about your past, but we
Yeah,
spoke earlier about the human operating system, and you
yeah,
founded the coaches operating system to help
yeah,
coaches build sustainable businesses.
yeah.
What do you see the biggest mistake new coaches make?
I want to be careful in calling it a mistake, right? Because fundamentally, people don't know what they don't know.
Mm.
I spent a lifetime studying and practicing and living in a world called how do you sell stuff? How do you get somebody to invest money in something and create a transaction? And I've always approached it from a very sort of ethical standpoint, but also like an honorable standpoint. For me, people exchange money for things that they believe will create value for them. It's no more complicated than that. Now, some marketers and snake oil salesmen and stuff will use that to their advantage to sell a lot of stuff, but I don't concern myself with that, right? If I'm selling software or medical supplies or coaching, I always think, okay, what needs to happen here to establish an appropriate exchange of value? And then how does that work? Right? How does that work? One of the things that people don't understand about coaching, I believe, one thing coaches don't understand is the market for coaching, the market that coaches sell into is very immature, right? Um, 30, 40 years ago, yoga was still fringe. Therapy didn't get spoken about as like something people did until the 70s and even 80s. So coaching is still just emerging as something that is mainstream. And most of the people who are are fans of coaching are the coaches, right? So it's a really clear case where you don't have a good supply and demand balance. So a lot of coaches think I'm going to build my coaching practice selling to people who understand coaching, value coaching, have money set aside for coaching, and want coaching. Well, unfortunately, that's really not how it works. In fact, one of the things I say to a lot of new coaches is, or one of the things I say a lot to new coaches is, when you're starting out in coaching, it will take you probably 6 years to get your practice to the point where you're self-sufficient. Now, there's a couple factors in that. One is the inner game of just holding yourself out as a coach. Another is getting good enough at coaching. The other is in coaching, you're actually creating your customers over time. You're not selling a product to a market that's looking to buy it and you just show up and tell them about it and they ask the price and you buy it. For most coaches, you are creating the desire for and the understanding of coaching in the person over time, and then they hire you as their coach. So even that realization will change the paradigm for a lot of people. If you're trying to find somebody who's ready for coaching, you're gonna starve. If you take it as instead a practice and a commitment to, well, for lack of a better term, evangelize the power of coaching, introduce people to coaching, give them the experience of coaching, and over time help them, we'll call it mature into a readiness for coaching. Well, they're your customer,
Mm.
right? I sort of wandered around on that, so I'll pause because I lost the original question, but I'm happy to keep talking about this.
All good. I want to shift into some of the things you've said about the emergence of AI commoditizing
Yeah.
information.
Oh yeah.
You've said that coaches must focus on transformation instead of information. What does that mean
Yeah.
for the future of coaching?
Oh man. A lot of things. I'm excited about it. So first things first. Information is just the stuff, the knowledge. And we were headed here anyway AI has exacerbated the problem, and that is the ubiquitous nature of information. There is nothing that is knowable that I can't learn or know very quickly via the internet, and now with the proliferation of AI tools. So for a lot of years, coaches, I think, believed that their value was the process, the system of coaching, the methodology of coaching, the question they like the stuff or the information that were in the books. Well, that's all here, and I can now interact with it. I don't know if you've played with any of the AI coaching tools, but they're really good. So information is simply the stuff that people want to know or have in their mind, what have you. What people are hungry for is transformation, which is the application of that information into the desired future state that they want, which usually requires stepping through some sort of portal or pathway that's uncomfortable or scary. And I'll give you a simple example. Somebody wants to lose weight, somebody wants to be physically fit. Well, there's no shortage of information on how to do that. And yet look around, that's not the state of the world. Well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is it's hard. It takes effort, and it confronts the very idea of who we see ourselves, how the world occurs for us. So transformation, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, requires doing things that challenge our core identity. So where does coaching come in? Well, fundamentally, transformation, I believe, is best facilitated when another human can receive information from someone that they look at and see some version of themselves in, right? So coaches who believe that coaching as a generalized practice that's good for everybody and I can serve anybody are going to have a really hard time because you're not going to compete with our friend ChatGPT and the other incredible apps. Coaches who realize that for a certain subset of humanity, they are the only path for that person to create the transformation that they want will be extraordinarily successful. And I'll give you an example myself. I'm a founder. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I've been divorced. I've built a company. I've created a company, etc. I'm white. I'm 56 years old. I'm American. There's a lot of people in the world that I could pontificate and share and give knowledge and read from the Bhagavad Gita and whatever, and they're going to go, yeah, whatever. It's not interesting to them. But there are certain people that I sit across from that literally won't receive anything that I'm sharing spoken from somebody else, right? AI can tell you how to navigate a divorce and bankruptcy and grow your company and, go from being an egotistical jackass to actually, loving life. What it can't do is sit across from you and say, I've been there. Let me tell you what it cost me, right? It's that empathic layer. So AI is now the owner of everything related to information. If you believe the information you have has any value, that is a myth you gotta dispel. If coaches are going to be successful, the coaches who are successful will realize that there are very, very few people on the planet that they're qualified to serve. But the ones they are qualified to serve, they are uniquely qualified to serve. And nobody else can hold that person. When I sit across from somebody and they're my people, what I know is there is nobody on the planet that is going to be able to assist them the way I can. There's nobody on the planet. And the same is true when somebody's not my people. I got to walk away and say, no matter how much they like me or think I can help them, I'm not going to be able to help them. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I see a lot of this going. AI is great at information. It does not assist with the powerful transformations that allow people to get the life they want. That's where our humans come in. That's where somebody who has walked the walk. One of the things I say to folks is we are only qualified to serve some previous version of ourselves. We can assist people in creating transformations for themselves that we have personally experienced and that relate to theirs. Somebody would come to me and talk about the death of a child. I could give them all sorts of ideas and philosophy and being. And at the end of the day, I've never walked in those shoes. I don't know what that's like. I'd much rather hand them off to somebody who I know has lived that
And is
And he
that
can,
what you mean, distinction between my people and not my people?
yeah, that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
The lived
People that I'm here to,
experience.
yeah, the lived experience, right? What AI will never replicate ever is a deeply personal experience of whatever it is that we're talking about, right?
Mm,
AI will never get divorced. AI will never experience bankruptcy. AI will never uh, consider ending its life and not wanting to live. It can tell you about all those things, right? There's an incredible scene in the Robin Williams and Matt Damon movie Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams is confronting Matt Damon, who's this savant genius guy who he goes, you could probably talk for 2 hours on Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel, but you've never stood underneath it and looked up and wept at the beauty of it. Like it's not the same. So it's a good movie and a good analog for coaching.
yeah.
Yeah.
What does integrity, wholeness of one's word, look like in the context of coaching relationships and agreements?
Ooh, we got a couple more hours hopefully because I can go on that. Here's the way I talk about that. Everything that we create with our word. Nothing happens in the world, nothing occurs without this gift we've been given called our word. Now, for me, our word is anything I think, anything I speak, anything I write. Language starts with my name, right? I'm Townsend. Well, I wouldn't be Townsend if I couldn't speak it or write it or think it. Everything is constructed with our word. It is the most fundamental building block of everything. And when you think about how people use their word, we use it in very careless ways. We use it in ways that degrade what I refer to and others refer to as the integrity of our word. Now, a lot of people think integrity is about doing the right thing or saying the right thing or the right actions or a morality thing. It's not. It's simply the degree something is what it's supposed to be, the degree to which it's whole, right? A great example, if you get a bar of gold and it's stamped 28 karat, right? And you test it, well, it's supposed to be 99.99% pure, maybe 24 karat. If you scrape it and it's not, right, it's gold plated, well, there's something wrong. There's something off between what it says it is and what it is. So integrity is how I create everything in my life about me, starting with my name, starting with how I intend to be, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, how I'm going to show up, right? When I sit across from somebody and I say to them, you have my commitment. I'm in this to help you get what you want. Well, those are just words. Those words can be built on a foundation of very powerful, very thoughtful, very whole integrity, including how I say I'm going to think, what I say I'm going to do, what I say I'm going to show up, all these things. Or they can be, like for a lot of people, built on a word that has very poor integrity. People say they're going to do something else. People say they're going to do something by a certain time, it's late. People tell you they're going to show up, they don't show up. People promise something, they give excuses, right? These aren't moral failings, but it's where we use our word in a way that actually degrades the power of our word. So if my word is powerful, I can create powerfully. Um, Abracadabra, which is the magician's chant, is actually derived from the ancient Aramaic, which means translated as I speak, I create. Right? When I say abracadabra, what I said is going to appears a bunny rabbit. Right? If I say I'm going to manifest, I'm going to materialize a suitcase with $1 million in it, abracadabra, and it appears. Well, that's a good genie. Like I want that genie in my corner, right? That's the genie with a powerful word, right? If the genie goes abracadabra and instead of like the $1 million in a suitcase, it's like $20 in an envelope. Well, that's not what he said it was going to be. There's something off between that. That's not high integrity. That's not very powerful. Now, we're not genies, and I'm not talking about magic, but think about it that way. If I say I'm going to lose weight and my word has power, I lose weight. I do the things required. If my word is weak, well, I make excuses. I don't do what I say I'm going to do, right? This morning I said I'm going for a 4 mile run. Well, what I knew when I said I'm doing that is I'm going to do it. Very simple, right? My word is powerful. I do what I say I'm going to do. The thoughts in my head are the thoughts I intend to think, what I speak, right? I take accountability for all that. And the more I do that, the more integrity my word has. And the more integrity my word has, the more powerful I can create. And the same is true for everyone. Now, my integrity is my integrity. I don't worry about other people's integrity. The power I have with my word is up to me. The power you have with your word is up to you. And the same is true for everyone. Now, I calibrate others' integrity, but I never get involved with, like, you're out of integrity, except when it comes to agreements. Because agreements are where I use my word and you use your word to say we're going to create something together. And if my word is powerful and your word is powerful, well, what we create together is powerful. And I'll give you an astounding example of that. One of my clients, an incredible creator, very successful business person, very driven. March of 24, we've been working together for about 2 years, and we work on integrity and agreements and being and all this stuff. And I said, what do you want to create? Right? He's got everything in his life, everything he could possibly want. He said, well, for a long time, I've wanted to make music, electronic music, dance music. I want to launch an album, produce an album, and I want to perform that album at there's a festival called Electronic Daisy Carnival, EDC in Vegas, one of the biggest festivals. I want to perform it at EDC next year. Now, you say that to any other human, they go, that it's not possible. It doesn't work that way. You can't get there from here. What I know about this person is he's got incredible integrity. He has a powerful word. He's an incredible creator. What I know about me is there's nobody on the planet more committed to creating power. There's nobody on the planet who thinks more about their integrity and how to create. In that moment, we created, that's going to happen. We spoke it. We spoke it. We started sharing it. And then we went into action with it. This was 2024. This year in March, he was on stage at EDC. And that wouldn't have happened without all the integrity and all the things we created and all the agreements we created with others along the way. He's in Nevada right now at Burning Man. He's got 10 shows he's playing at Burning Man this week. Right? All created from the power of his word, focusing on his integrity, creating powerful agreements in others that move towards that goal. That's how it works, man.
Wow. Beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you personally navigate the tension between ambition, wealth creation, and inner peace?
Well, it's interesting because I don't see there's any tension.
Nah, I thought you'd say that.
Well, here's what I mean. There is only tension if there's dependency, right? How do you navigate the tension between going to the mall and taking a nap? Well, I don't do them at the same time, and they got nothing to do with each other. Wealth creation is a game. Hell, peace is a game. What was the other one?
Ambition.
Yeah, ambition's a game. Where things get sticky is when one's tied to another, right? So for a lot of people, I need ambition so I can create wealth so I can have peace.
Ah, wow.
Right? Well, okay, if that's how it works and I got to get the right amount of each one, how about they got nothing to do with each other? How about peace is simply the degree to which I'm an acceptance of what is as it is, right? I'm not thinking it should be another way. Wealth creation is the degree to which money piles up versus doesn't pile up. And I can create intention around that. I can use my word to create it, etc. Ambition may or may not have something to do with it. I know lots of wealthy people have very low ambition. I know people who are wealthy and have very little peace. Often that's because they've chased the wealth so they could feel free and safe, which they think will give them peace. So to me, there's no tension between them. The question is, what's the game you want to play? My highest value is peace. There's nothing that I will allow to stand in the way of peace for me. I also love making money. I love making money. Got nothing to do with peace. Right? Now, I do find that the more peaceful I am, the more money shows up. Is it a correlation or a cause? I'm not concerned. I don't attach the two. As for motivation, sometimes I am probably the most motivated human on the planet. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I just want to sit around and watch a movie. So I allow all of those things to occur and I decide, what do I want in this moment? What do I want to be doing? What do I want to be playing for? What do I want to be creating?
Townsend, you have a book coming out soon called The How of Being. What can readers expect, and how is it different from other leadership or coaching books?
A great question. I've been working on this for a while, and I am committed to bringing it into the world. What I've come to see is that the book's not going to be for everyone. I have a unique, I believe, ability to help people see and work at the level of their being. I've not created any of this myself. I've learned from incredible teachers, from Steve Hardison to Rich Litvin to Michael Neal to you name it. And I'm calling it the How of Being, but really what it is for me a field book for somebody that would be interested to get a chance to learn and practice seeing how all this really works. Right? We're all sitting in a movie theater convinced that what's on the screen is real and we got to deal with that. It's a lifetime's work to realize actually that's a projection. It's all up in the booth. And it's not like I'm done with that. I'm fooled all the time. All the time I'm thinking it's the screen and arguing with the screen or relating to the screen. I go, oh, what time out? I got to back out of that. Now, I'd love to believe that this book would change the world and everybody would want it. But at the end of the day, what I believe is the book will be information. This book will be really relevant and have the capacity to assist in transformation for those that go, yeah, that's the guy I want to hear it from. So I don't know what people expect, and at this point, to be honest, I'm thinking of making it a very limited edition release where people can only buy it for me and not playing the Amazon game, not playing the whole. But we'll see how that goes. There's so many good books out there, and there's so much information out there, and what I trust is people will find the right conduit for the information they need, for the transformation they seek, for the journey they're on.
Absolutely. If you could plant one idea in the mind of every coach and business leader on the planet, what would it be?
One idea. Oh, that's an easy one. Remember how lucky we are to do this, how fortunate we are. Like, there are people waking up today, getting in a car, commuting 40 minutes in an office, working on, doing something. We get to wake up and work with other humans and give them a shot at a life they dream about. Like, I don't care what's going on. I don't care how broke you are. I would do this for free. I've done this when I was broke. I've done this when I was looking at $4 in the bank account and I don't know how it's going to work. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. So the degree to which you can remember that this is a gift. This is such a privilege, like such a gift from the universe that I get to do this. Everything else is just like a cherry and whipped cream on it.
Love it. If you could give one piece of advice to a new coach entering the industry today, what would it be?
Relax. Relax. You'll get there. You're exactly where you belong. You're right where you're supposed to be. This takes time. Don't listen to all the people telling you you're gonna make a ton of money in a year, and if you're not doing that, and just don't listen to anybody, especially me. That's my biggest advice. You got here somehow. Trust that. Trust it. Relax. Start with everything will be okay. You're on the right path, and over time you'll have proof of that. That'd be the easiest thing I'd share.
Townsend, I want to thank you so much for all of your great wisdom today. It's been an absolute pleasure to dive deeper into your philosophy of being and how you're creating amazing results for coaches in the world. Thank you
Mm.
so much for being with us today.
Thank you, man. It's been fun. Excited to see the issue come out, and hope people get
Yeah,
a lot of value out of
I
it.
can't wait for our subscribers to check it out. Yeah,
Right
thank
on.
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.